You read the title right. I'm moving to an island 3,000 miles away from where I currently live. Seriously, it's not clickbait. This isn't sensationalism. I'm moving 3,000 miles away to a freaking island. So I'm moving from Arizona. I'm going to hop on a plane, get a connection because there's no direct flights, and I am moving very soon to tropical Puerto Rico. So let's talk about why I'm doing this, ranging everywhere from fun stuff like just living somewhere tropical to more nitty-gritty details like tax savings and things like that. And let's also talk about how this is going to affect my current businesses, my YouTube channel. I mean, with my moving company, I have 20 employees who work for me. So let's talk about how that's going to affect everything and why I am doing something so drastic and why I am doing it very soon. This is happening in a few weeks from now. So starting off with why I'm doing this. First reason, number one, moving somewhere tropical. I want to try living somewhere tropical. I was born and raised in Minnesota. I've lived in Arizona for the last 6 years. Don't have any family or any deep ties to Arizona. I've lived here, started a business, did my thing, and I'm ready to try something different. If I don't like it, that's right, but I'd like to try living somewhere tropical. The average temperature in Puerto Rico, just for your reference, is 80 degrees year-round. Even in the coldest month of the year, it's 70 degrees average. The average ocean temperature, I just read this, is 81 degrees Fahrenheit year-round in Puerto Rico. So it's kind of cool to live somewhere tropical and just try it out, like I said. And the second reason I'm moving, and of course this is a big reason, and that is taxes, savings on taxes. There are significant savings if you move to Puerto Rico from the mainland US on your taxes. There's incentives for investors and business owners to move there. They want investors and business owners to move to Puerto Rico. But there is a misconception that you pay zero taxes as soon as you move to Puerto Rico, no taxes whatsoever. That's not exactly how it works. So the corporate tax rate in the US right now, mainland US, is 21%, just on the federal level. Now that may increase in the future years once there's new bills passed with infrastructure and things like that. But as of right now, it's 21%. In Puerto Rico, it's 4%. So it's significantly lower, not zero. The capital gains tax rate, this is huge for people who are like day traders, things like that. The capital gains tax rate in Puerto Rico is 0%. Tax on dividends is also 0%. But it's not like you can quite just move to Puerto Rico, sell all your assets, and pay 0% taxes on that. It's only 0% on gains made after you move. Gains made before you move, and then you move, you pay a tax rate on. We can take a look at this graph that explains this a little bit better. So we can see gains that were realized before your 10th year of residency have a 15% Puerto Rico tax rate and an additional federal tax rate. Gains that were realized after your 10th year of residency have a 5% Puerto Rico tax rate. So it's not zero. You can't just move there, pay no tax, but the gains that you accrue after you move there are tax-free until at least 2036. So there's huge savings there. But there's also additional things that should be considered towards the effective tax rate, even though they aren't necessarily tax, because there's a lot of filings and other miscellaneous things. So first off, there's a $5,000 per year filing fee in order to be a part of this initiative. So that should count towards, at least mentally, the effective tax that you're paying. There's a $10,000 per year donation that you need to make to a Puerto Rican charity in order to be a part of this tax incentive. You have to pay a lot of additional money to CPA expenses. I'm estimating about $4,500 per year because these laws are pretty darn complicated, and you basically have to hire someone to be able to follow them correctly. And then other miscellaneous fees, I'm figuring about $1,200 per year. And then on top of that, even though the tax rates are lower, the corporate tax rate is lower, the capital gains rate is lower, you also have to pay yourself a reasonable wage, and that reasonable wage is taxed at pretty much normal tax rates. It's still slightly lower, but fairly normal tax rates. So a large percentage of your income, unless you're making like $10 million a year, a large percentage of your income is probably still taxed at a normal tax rate. So taking all of these various fees into consideration and adding them up, you start saving money on your taxes over about $200,000 per year. That's when you could consider moving and actually saving some money on your tax bill. Now, another thing you might want to figure if you're thinking about Puerto Rico yourself is housing is also more expensive. So in my opinion, I use that as part of my calculation as to whether I would save money or not, is the increase in housing costs. So there's a lot to consider there. It's not really no tax. You still are paying a significant amount of tax, just not quite as high as mainland US, and enough savings to consider taking a look at whether this works for your financial situation or not. Now, the next reason I wanted to move is simply change and getting out of my comfort zone. So if I think about the last 6 years or so of my life where I've lived in Arizona, my life has pretty much been the exact same every single day, with just a variation of what I'm working on. Because ever since I moved to Arizona, with the exception of the first few months I was here just trying to figure out what exactly I wanted to do, I have basically just worked all day, pretty much every single day, with very few exceptions, and that's about it. Very little changes in lifestyle, housing, things like that. I've just basically worked and worked and worked for about 6 years. And I think with me, it builds up a little bit where I do the same thing for so long. I need to make some kind of fundamental change, and moving to a different area is kind of that fundamental change that that I'm like forcing myself to do, even though it's very uncomfortable to do. And also just getting out of my comfort zone. I found that every time I've really forced myself to get out of the comfort zone, that's when I see a lot of progress, and that's when I really excel in my life. And I think ultimately forcing myself to do that will open new doors and new opportunities. I could be wrong, and I may have to move back. I guess we don't know, and time will tell. Next is the entrepreneurial community in Puerto Rico, and just moving somewhere that welcomes businesses. So in Puerto Rico, there's a lot of people exactly like me who are moving there because of the incentives, and because of this, there's a huge growing community of successful people who live there, and they're also on an island, potentially away from all their family and their old existing friends, and they want to meet new people and collaborate and build things and be with like-minded people. And I find that extremely interesting, and of course that's something that I want to be a part of, is meet other like-minded people. If you're an investor or business owner that lives in Puerto Rico, send me a message. Now, moving, of course, comes with a ton of complications. And you might be asking, what am I going to do with my business, with my house, with my YouTube channel, things like that? So first off, with my house, I'm actually just going to keep my house as is, at least for a year, just in case I want to move back. I have a 1-year lease at a new place in Puerto Rico where I'm just leasing it for a year, and then I'll decide whether I want to buy a house there or not. In the meantime, I'll keep my house. I rent out rooms in my house because I'm cheap, and keeping the house really won't cost me very much because the rent will cover pretty much everything. So it's not a huge expense. Plus, most of my stuff is just going to stay. I'm going to go with like literally 4 or 5 suitcases with my gear and things like that. I'm just going to go with that and kind of figure it out. Now, what I'm doing with my business, this is the most important one to me. What I'm doing with my business and all my employees here who rely on that business for their income and for their families and things like that. This is a huge concern of mine, and what I've been spending most of my time in the last few weeks setting up and making sure everything is in order. So with my business, I'm going to keep it and manage it remotely. Now, luckily, I'm able to do this both because I have good management who can do pretty much everything without even my input at this point, because I have built systems and processes over the last 5 or so years to really automate everything. I mean, when I say everything, I mean everything. I even have a set process on how to fix the printer when the printer is down. So then there's not even a phone call to me needed. Hey, the printer's down. What should I do? From that all the way to more complicated things like building a marketing plan or selling jobs, everything you could possibly imagine, there's a step-by-step process for. Now that I'm leaving, I had to make some additional things like how to handle payments and deposits in the bank and things like that, but we're getting everything figured out and systemized. I'll also do an additional video on how I'm facilitating all that for anyone who's more curious about business ownership and delegation and kind of making it more and more passive income. I'll do another video on that in the future once I have everything 100% set up. And then how will this affect my YouTube channel? And really, this really won't affect it. If anything, my YouTube channel will just get better because I'm just gonna have more time to focus on the YouTube channel because I'm just gonna be at my house working on these videos all day long, basically. So the YouTube channel should just get better and better with this move. There's internet there. There's better internet there than there is in Arizona, believe it or not. It's kind of insane. But yeah, the YouTube channel is going nowhere. It will grow dramatically with the move because I'll be able to spend much more time on this kind of stuff. So I'm really excited about this and how it's going to force me out of my comfort zone and the rewards that will come as a result of that. So I would just like to thank you for watching. Thank you for tuning into my journey, if you will. I don't know if that's an overused word. And of course, as always, I hope you have a profitable day.